Have you noticed how some people seem to age dramatically once they hit their 60s and 70s, while others continue to thrive well into their later years? What if I told you the difference isn't just genetics or luck, but rather habits formed decades earlier? The truth is, many of the health challenges we associate with aging actually begin taking root in our 50s, when we're still feeling relatively young and resilient. In this video, we're going to explore 5 surprising habits that people in their 50s often develop, without realizing they're setting themselves up for difficulties later. These aren't the obvious culprits like poor diet or lack of exercise. These are subtle shifts that fly under the radar until their effects compound years later. The good news is, once you recognize these patterns, you can change your trajectory while there's still plenty of time. So if you're in your 50s now, or approaching that decade, or if you care about someone who is, stay with me until the end, because understanding these 5 overlooked factors might completely transform how you experience your later years. Let's get started. Number 1. Digital convenience isolation. The first hidden factor affecting people in their 50s is what I call digital convenience isolation. This happens gradually, as we increasingly substitute digital solutions for physical activities and face-to-face interactions. Think about it. Grocery delivery instead of shopping in person, texting instead of meeting for coffee, Zoom calls instead of community gatherings, even watching exercise videos instead of joining a class. Each of these modern conveniences seems harmless, even smart. After all, isn't technology supposed to make our lives easier? But here's what we don't realize. Every time we choose digital convenience over physical presence, we're subtly reducing what neuroscientists call environmental complexity. Our brains and bodies thrive on navigating varied environments with multiple sensory inputs and unexpected social exchanges. That chance conversation with the bakery owner, the spontaneous decision to try a new route home, the need to carry grocery bags to your car. These aren't just activities. They're cognitive and physical workouts that keep our neural pathways flexible and our muscles engaged. I remember meeting Sarah, a vibrant woman who'd recently retired at 58. She prided herself on her efficiency, managing her entire life from her tablet, from bill payments to social plans to shopping. 6 years later, at 64, she noticed she was becoming increasingly anxious about leaving her home. Small errands felt overwhelming, and social gatherings exhausted her. The digital life that had seemed so efficient had actually shrunk her comfort zone, reducing her tolerance for the natural complexity of the world outside her home. The science is clear. Our brains maintain what they use. When we stop regularly navigating new environments, managing spontaneous interactions, or physically moving through different spaces, the neural pathways that handle these tasks begin to weaken. It's not that we can't use them anymore, it's that they require more energy, creating that sense of fatigue or overwhelm that many people misinterpret as just getting older. So what's the solution? I'm not suggesting abandoning technology, far from it. Instead, practice what I call intentional inconvenience. Choose one errand each week that you'll do in person instead of online. Walk into your bank occasionally, instead of always using the app. Shop at a farmer's market once a month. Join an in-person class rather than watching tutorials. These small choices maintain your brain's environmental flexibility and your body's capability, building a reserve of adaptability that becomes increasingly valuable as you age. Remember, it's not about rejecting modern convenience. It's about recognizing that some forms of inconvenience are actually investments in your future capacity to engage fully with the world. Number 2. Skill abandonment. The second overlooked factor is skill abandonment. By our 50s, most of us have become highly efficient at the things we do regularly. We've mastered our professional skills, household routines, and personal habits. This efficiency feels good. It's comfortable and reassuring. But there's a hidden cost to this comfort that most people miss. They stop learning new skills almost entirely. Think about it. When was the last time you truly struggled to learn something completely new? Not just a variation of something you Already no, but a genuine beginner experience, where you felt awkward, frustrated, even a little foolish. For many people in their 50s, it might have been years or even decades. This matters because there's a fundamental difference between practicing what you're already good at and struggling through the messy process of learning something new. The latter creates what scientists call beneficial stress in the brain, triggering the growth of new neural connections and promoting cognitive flexibility. When we abandon this kind of learning, we're unwittingly allowing certain cognitive pathways to become fixed and rigid, setting ourselves up for the very mental inflexibility we fear as we age. I once met a man named Michael, who'd been an accountant for 30 years. At 54, after decades of professional success, he decided on a whim to take Spanish lessons. The first few weeks were humbling and uncomfortable. He couldn't believe how difficult it was to form simple sentences or remember basics vocabulary. But he stuck with it, and something remarkable happened. Not only did his Spanish gradually improve, but he noticed other changes too. He became more patient with technological challenges at work. He found himself more willing to consider opposing viewpoints in discussions. His thinking became more nimble across all areas of his life. The science explains why. Learning a new skill, especially one very different from what you already know, creates new pathways throughout the brain. These pathways don't just serve the new skill, they contribute to overall cognitive resilience, which becomes increasingly important after age 65. So what can you do? Commit to learning something truly new every 2 years. Choose skills that make you feel like a beginner again. If you're analytical, try something artistic. If you're artistic, try something technical. Take up an instrument, learn a language, try woodworking, coding, pottery, or dance. What matters isn't mastery, but the process of struggling through the early stages of learning. That productive struggle is what builds cognitive reserve and keeps your brain adaptable for decades to come. And if you're still watching this video and finding these insights valuable, please comment "Learning never stops" below to let me know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any videos. Your support helps us continue creating meaningful content to inform and inspire you. Number 3. Sleep compromise, the third. Factor silently affecting health trajectories in people's 50s is sleep compromise. This decade often brings peak career responsibilities, financial pressures, and sometimes caregiving duties for both children and aging parents. With so many demands, sleep frequently becomes the negotiable item in the schedule. Maybe you're staying up later to finally have some personal time, waking earlier to get a head start on work, or experiencing disrupted sleep from stress or hormonal changes. What makes this particularly dangerous is that many people in their 50s can seemingly get away with it. They function reasonably well on 6 hours of sleep, power through with coffee, catch up on weekends, and consider this normal. But here's what's happening beneath the surface. This decade of compromised sleep is setting the stage for accelerated brain aging. During deep sleep, your brain activates its glymphatic system, a recently discovered cleaning mechanism that removes harmful proteins and waste products that accumulate during waking hours. One of these proteins, beta amyloid, is associated with cognitive decline when it builds up over time. This cleaning process happens most effectively during the deep sleep phases that often get shortened when sleep is compressed or interrupted. I remember speaking with Eleanor, a high-powered executive who'd been operating on 5 to 6 hours of sleep nightly throughout her 50s. She prided herself on needing less sleep than others. By 63, however, she was experiencing memory issues and found it increasingly difficult to concentrate during complex meetings, challenges she hadn't faced before, despite decades of high-stress work. Her neurologist explained that years of sleep restriction had likely contributed to these changes by limiting her brain's nightly restoration process. What's particularly sobering is that research suggests the relationship between sleep and brain health is cumulative, meaning the sleep patterns of your 50s can impact your cognitive resilience a decade or more later, even if you improve your sleep habits in the interim. So what's the solution? First, recognize that sleep isn't a luxury or a sign of laziness. It's essential biological maintenance that becomes more critical, not less, as we age. Then make concrete changes. Establish a firm sleep schedule even on weekends. Create a proper wind-down routine without screens for 30-60 minutes before bed. Keep your bedroom cool and dark, and most importantly, protect your sleep time as the non-negotiable appointment it truly is. If you're experiencing insomnia or sleep disruptions that persist, consider consulting a sleep specialist rather than accepting poor sleep as inevitable. Remember, the goal isn't just more hours in bed, it's more restorative sleep that allows your brain to perform its essential maintenance functions. Your 70-year-old self will thank you for the investment you make now. Number 4. Emotional postponement. The fourth overlooked factor affecting long-term health is what I call emotional postponement. By their 50s, many people have developed a habit of deferring emotional processing, putting difficult feelings on hold to manage immediate responsibilities. "I'll deal with this later" becomes a common refrain, whether it's grief over a parent's passing, tension in a marriage, disappointment about career trajectories, or anxiety about the future. This postponement often feels necessary and even responsible. After all, there are deadlines to meet, bills to pay, and others depending on you. The problem is that later rarely comes. One pressing situation leads to another, and unaddressed emotions accumulate silently in the background of a busy life. What most people don't realize is that emotions aren't just psychological experiences. They have biochemical components that affect the body in tangible ways. When emotions are consistently suppressed or postponed, they create what researchers call allostatic load, essentially wear and tear on the body's regulatory systems from chronic stress. This manifests as inflammation, hormonal imbalances, and even changes to cardiovascular function. I recall meeting Thomas, a successful business owner who'd been pushing through personal challenges throughout his 50s, his brother's death, his daughter's difficult divorce, his own health scare, all while maintaining his company's growth. "I don't have time to fall apart," he often said. By 62, he was experiencing unexplained digestive issues, sleep disturbances, and high blood pressure that medication wasn't adequately controlling. His doctor finally told him something remarkable. "Your body is having the conversations your mind has been avoiding." The science here is compelling. Chronically postponed emotions trigger sustained elevations in stress hormones like cortisol, which over time can damage tissues, suppress immune function, and contribute to conditions from heart disease to cognitive decline. More importantly, this backlog of unprocessed emotion often erupts in the 60s and 70s, precisely when health becomes more vulnerable and resilience more critical. So what can you do? Start by recognizing that emotional processing isn't a luxury. It's essential maintenance for both mental and physical health. Create regular intervals for emotional check-ins, whether through journaling, therapy, meaningful conversations with trusted friends, or mindfulness practices. Consider these appointments with yourself as important as any medical checkup, because in a very real sense, they are preventative healthcare. Remember, the goal isn't to dwell on negative feelings, but to move through them rather than around them, because emotions, like physical pain, serve an important signaling function. When we repeatedly ignore these signals, we miss critical information about what needs attention in our lives. And if you're still watching this video and finding these insights valuable, please comment "Feeling Matters" below to let me know you're here. Your engagement helps this content reach others who might benefit. Number 5. Identity stagnation. The fifth and perhaps most subtle factor affecting future health is identity stagnation. By our 50s, most of us have established who we are, professionally, socially, within our families. This solid sense of identity brings confidence and stability. But there's a hidden risk in becoming too firmly fixed in who we think we are. Many people in their 50s unconsciously close themselves off to new aspects of identity. I'm not a creative person. I've never been athletic. I'm terrible with technology. I'm just not a morning person. These identity statements might have been true once, but when we hold them as permanent truths, we limit our capacity to evolve and adapt, setting ourselves up for increasing rigidity as we age. What makes this particularly dangerous is that major identity shifts often occur whether we plan for them or not. Retirement, children leaving home, health changes, or loss of a spouse can all dramatically alter roles that once defined us. Those who've maintained identity flexibility tend to navigate these transitions with greater resilience, while those with fixed self-concepts often struggle with profound disorientation. I remember meeting Diane, who'd defined herself primarily through her high-powered career and parenting. At 52, she laughingly dismissed suggestions to explore new interests. "That's not me, I'm all business." When retirement and an empty nest arrived simultaneously at 65, she experienced not just normal adjustment, but a profound identity crisis that manifested as depression, anxiety, and worsening physical health. The science suggests that identity flexibility, the ability to adapt and incorporate new aspects of self throughout life, correlates strongly with both psychological and physical well-being in later years. Those who continue expanding their self-concept show better cognitive function, stronger immune responses, and greater overall life satisfaction as they age. So, what can you do? Start questioning your "I am" and "I'm not" statements. Experiment with aspects of identity you've previously rejected. If you've always said "I'm not creative," take an art class with zero expectations of mastery. If you've defined yourself as "not athletic," try a completely new physical activity where everyone's a beginner. The goal isn't to excel, but to gently challenge the boundaries of who you believe yourself to be. Additionally, cultivate what psychologists call possible selves, imagined future identities that give you direction and meaning beyond current roles. This might mean exploring interests that could become central after retirement, nurturing relationships outside your primary work circle, or developing skills that might support future chapters. Remember, identity isn't meant to solidify by midlife. It's meant to continue evolving. Those who understand this tend to move through their 60s, 70s, and beyond with continued vitality, curiosity, and purpose. Final thoughts as we wrap up this exploration of how our habits in our 50s shape our future health. I want to leave you with an empowering thought. Aging doesn't suddenly happen to us at 65 or 70. It's a continuous process that we're actively influencing through countless small choices right now. The 5 factors we've discussed: digital convenience, isolation, skill abandonment, sleep compromise, emotional postponement, and identity stagnation, aren't dramatic or obvious. They're subtle shifts that happen gradually, almost invisibly, as we adapt to the pressures and patterns of midlife. What makes them so important is that they compound over time, either building resilience or creating vulnerability that becomes apparent years later. The most encouraging aspect of all this research is that it's never too late to change trajectory. Our bodies and brains remain remarkably responsive to positive change at every age. Even small adjustments in these 5 areas can significantly impact how you'll experience your 60s, 70s, and beyond. So I invite you to reflect. Which of these 5 factors resonated most strongly with you? Where might you be unconsciously setting patterns that could limit you later? And most importantly, what one small change could you implement this week to begin shifting that pattern? Because the truth is, your 50s aren't just about maintaining what you have. They're about actively building the foundation for decades of continued growth, engagement, and well-being. The choices you make now are powerful investments in your future self. Thank you for staying with me through this exploration. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Which of these factors surprised you most, and what changes are you considering making? Your experiences and insights might inspire others on their own journeys toward healthier aging. If you found value in this video, please consider subscribing and sharing it with someone in their 50s who might benefit. Until next time, remember that the best time to invest in your future health isn't tomorrow, it's today.